Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking you on a journey as I venture through this pattern I'm going to be trying. So the pattern is a Boho Rainbow Blanket. This is a paid pattern that I purchased on Etsy, and the pattern credit goes to Corinne at Skinny Beater Crochet. She has an Etsy account and that's where I got her pattern. I am specifically going to be making the color schemes for a baby boy. In her pattern it does show one that's more spring color, more for a girl. And she did have another one pictured that was more boy colors. I ended up messaging her because all of her pattern had was just the ones in the first picture for all the spring colors and not one for the boy, and she was extremely helpful in helping me get that color scheme. So I have here's all the different colors of yarn. I will pass on the info to you guys if you are interested in making the same thing with the boy colors. She specifically said, and this is starting I believe from the inside of the rainbow blanket on out. So that first color, and here's the picture. So the first color is, and this is with the Style Craft Special double knit. So the colors Lapids, Cloud Blue, Storm Blue, Duck Egg, Cypress, Lincoln, Meadow, and Walnut. And then that background whitish speckly color, she said it is Patron Fab DK Natural Tweed, and the number is 02070. So some of these I actually had to tweak because I'm in the United States, so some of this yarn is not easy, especially the Stylecraft yarn is not something that I can easily come by here in the United States. I actually had to specially order some of this from the UK in order to even get it. So some of these actually I had to tweak in just the color scheme anyway. So I'm going to be showing you guys what I'm using. So she said the first color was supposed to be Lapids, but I ended up going with a denim color instead because that was a little more accessible for me. And then the next one's supposed to be Cloud Blue. So that's Cloud Blue. I do have that. I apologize. Some of my yarn came really weird when it shipped, so it's all over the place. The next color is supposed to be Storm Blue, and that's the Storm Blue. Kind of pretty. And then the next color is Duck Egg, which that's what I have here. So some of these are right. The next one is Cypress. That one's Cypress. Now this one I know is wrong because I had to get a different one. So the next one's supposed to be Lincoln. I could not get Lincoln. It was completely sold out. So I just went with Mushy Peas. I know that's probably the least attractive thing, but it looks great with the color scheme. And then the next color is supposed to be Meadow, which that's what that one is. And then the last one is supposed to be Walnut, and I ended up getting Mocha instead, which I think is a lot nicer. I think the Walnut was really dark or red looking in her pattern, so I think the brown will be a lot nicer to use personally with these lighter colors. And to get the Patron Fab DK Natural Tweed was literally impossible to get from the United States. I had to buy it from another country, and I already dealt with a bunch of these trying to get from another country, and the fees and the taxes and all that, and I'm trying not to break the bank to make this blanket if possible. So I ended up completely ruling out because it was going to be way too expensive. I had this on hand, so I'm going to be doing this as the background. I think it will go really good, especially since there'll be some blues already, and you know, it is for a boy. And this is Lion Brand Ice Cream Big Scoop, and this is a 3-weight yarn, and that's what all of these are. So I'm thinking these will all work very nicely together. They're very light, very soft, and I will not have to use all of this. So we'll have still probably plenty of this left. So I wanted to share what the colors are, and now I'm going to kind of go through the process and I guess update you guys as I work along the way. This is my first time making this, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of film my journey as I log this as I go along. Alright, so I've been working on this for several hours and several days up to this point. I'm going to be real honest, this has actually been an extremely challenging project for me personally. I did not realize until I actually got involved with this that this is actually a mosaic blanket. So I'm very used to doing like graphkins and stuff where you're not really working a specific way, whereas you're working things and then stuff is skipped over. So kind of how with this one, you can't really see it, but it is worked this color all the way across, and then I come in with the blue to kind of fill in. So I guess that's how I guess that's mosaic. I'm new to mosaic. I've not done a whole lot of that. But it's also just a very big blanket itself. There's nothing wrong with the pattern. It's more of my fault. I have a lot of issues with stitch count so far, and getting the stitch count right and making sure I'm doing things correctly, and also just misreading the pattern. So I'm not saying that this has anything to do with the creator, because they've done a wonderful job and it has actually been extremely helpful when I have realized and been like, wait a minute, I'm not sure what's right here. And there's pictures, so I've been looking back on that kind of stuff. So this definitely is an intermediate pattern. So if you have watched this far already, do not do this if you're a beginner, because I have been crocheting for quite some time and this has been challenging even for me. Not to say that nobody should do this, but it's just a lot of counting and just very tedious things. So really make sure if you are doing this to pay attention to your stitch count and making sure that you are getting everything correctly. Otherwise, you're going to be doing what I'm doing. Like I got to this portion and realized it says, you know, in the pattern, it will tell you right side, wrong side. And I started realizing I was not working, the sides weren't matching up till about here. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. And then I realized I had completely skipped a row. So more of my fault, but it is a very tedious and time consuming. And I have learned I cannot do this when I'm tired, because I think that is where most of my flaws have been. But overall, I am enjoying this, and it's been really fun to see these new techniques that I've never done before and watching it come to life, because I've been able to follow her pattern, and by looking at her pictures, because she has pictures in her pattern on how to do some of this stuff, and that has been really helpful thus far. I've also been going kind of slow because, as you guys saw, I am not using the same colors. So as I've been going along, I've also been making my own little notes over here with just colors, because the color changing is not the same. So just to help myself, if I make, because I hope to probably make these again, you know, I know a lot of people, and just being able to make different colors of this rainbow would be nice. So I'm just trying to make it so that it makes it a little more flowy for me to understand with the color changes. So if you guys are making this, you might want to do the same, just to help you keep your colors all down and all that stuff, because it does not match with this one, because this is specifically, this pattern is following the more springy girl flow of colors. So definitely pay attention to that for your rainbows that you are planning on making, on if you are doing different colors. But so far so good. Here we'll go just a little bit farther. We'll keep going. So I believe on row 19 that I'll be working on. So I'll update you guys as I go along here. Got a few more colors to go. All right, I worked probably couple more rows here since that last clip. But I wanted to share with my little technique that I have been doing to help me keep kind of my stitch count, because I'm at a point now in this pattern that there's about over 200, almost about halfway to 300 stitches here, all the way around this whole thing. And I don't feel like having to count that every single time. So what I've been doing is I kind of have been going by her sections for all the different, because there's moments where you're repeating and having to do stuff for little sections here. So I've been just kind of marking my little sections, so then I'm only having to worry about, like for this part where the stitch count is all kind of the same. So it just kind of helps me keep track instead of having to count quite as much. And so that just helps my brain. I don't know about you guys, but that's what works for me and makes it a little less overwhelming, because this is a lot of counting. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. You can use, I've been using just the little yarn scraps. You can use stitch markers or whatever. And I'm trying to use colors that I can kind of see, so I can tell where my stitches and all that is, especially where my little repeat areas are, just as I'm going along. So I hope that's helping you guys out with yours if you're finding this a little intimidating and overwhelming with the stitch count, because as fun as that is to do every single row, it's counting over 100 stitches. It can be a bit bleh. All right, so I've been carrying on here, working on row 23, and I struggled greatly with this portion. I think it was just my brain not wrapping around how this worked. So I'm going to try to explain it to you guys in a way that isn't revealing her pattern, because I do not have the rights to tell you guys that. But basically, when you're working, you want to be watching for where your one unworked front loop is. So, because I got confused when it mentioned front loop and stuff, because I thought it was talking about the front loops for this. She does kind of make a note, but it just didn't register to me after I read it for like 5 or 10 minutes over and over and over, trying to figure it out. So when you're working, make sure that you're working into these, because that's what I've got going on here. Because she does say something about like the treble and the treble 2 together. Those will happen where row 21 is. That's row 21 here. And then your back loops will be in that back loop up here. That makes any sense. I just got really confused for me, because she does make a note about that, but when you're reading into the how you're actually working this row, I felt like it was kind of confusing to figure out, okay, which was front loops, which is back loops. So if you guys are like me and got really confused in that portion, maybe this was helpful for you guys to kind of know that that's what you're working into. So you're working into that one here to do your trebles, and then you're doing just your singles through, I believe it's the back loop, so these back loops, not these front ones. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys in that regards, because I was trying to figure that out. I kept getting confused. I kept thinking maybe it's the front loop for this, and it's really just the front loops that are popping up here. So it gets kind of confusing, but hopefully that was helpful. You guys can also try messaging her and having her better explain, because I'm trying to be respectful of not giving away her pattern, because I don't have the rights to do that. But I hope that that was kind of helpful, just kind of explaining how to do this row, because it is very confusing if you're not used to doing all these things like I am. I was kind of confused about how to do all of this part. But I'll just be working the rest of this row and carrying on, and I'll update you guys at the next portion. Okay, so I know I said in the last clip I was going to update you guys on the next section, and I really didn't have a hard time with this next mosaic part. I think this was the most complicated, and then this one would probably go as my second, but this was my first time doing a mosaic. So by the time I had, done these, I kind of had the gist of how the mosaic process worked. So this one actually is much easier than these other two. So if you struggled with these, this will be nothing, and then these are just baubles. So I didn't bother filming just because I didn't want to be boring and repetitive, and I was moving along fairly quickly with how the rest of this was going. I also had gotten really sick with some really bad allergies, so I don't think you guys wanted to hear me hacking and coughing in the background the whole time. So I just didn't bother filming. I can tell you any little notes that I did have, really nothing was too big here. Like I said, you kept going with just doing your solid parts right here. I think the blocking part, when you get to squaring off here, I'm going to move over here, to squaring off this portion here and this portion here was kind of complicated. Let me see what my notes said with that. Okay, so in the pattern, it has you kind of do all your little stitch counts to where you do your little marks to put all your little stitch markers, and you have it facing you. I felt like it was a little complicated. It was fine for this side because it's like, okay, do your right side, and then there's this whole, I think 1 through 9 of what you do to kind of square this off, which was completely fine. I had no issues with, but I did have a bit of a struggle with doing it on the left side, because I believe she just says to repeat rows 1 through 9 for the left side, but I did feel like it was slightly different when it came to how you worked it, because you still have, she didn't specify, but you still have the right side facing you. But I felt like when we did it on this side, you started here and then worked this way, whereas you're going to be starting up here and working this way. So I think when it comes to my notes, because you're going to be attaching on both sides, I believe, there's a stitch marker for the 90th and 138th stitch for both sides. Okay, and then you're supposed to start with your first stitch marker, whereas on this side it made sense that this was the first stitch marker, whereas on this side I kept thinking this was the first stitch marker on this side, when you actually will be starting this way and working the same direction as you did on this side. So it was a little not specified on that and a little vague. So if you're working on your left portion and having the same problem I had, you're going to be working as this, wherever your stitch marker is from here, because you'll have one down here and you'll have one up here, and so this will be where you're going to start, and you'll work the same that you did on this side. So that was a little complicated. Once you get that all figured out and your stitch count correct with this, doing the rest of the border, so you've got this border that goes all the way around, and I believe it's pretty basic. Let me find my part of that pattern, hold on. This pattern has a lot of pages here. Okay, so when you get to doing it, I think it's a little complicated when you start doing your first, because you have a bunch of, and I can't show it because it's not here anymore to see it, but you create this square, so you're going to be losing some stitches along the way and decreasing, so there'll be like spots, and she shows a picture in her pattern to kind of help you better follow how you're going to do your stitches to attach this on this portion and then on this portion. I think that is the most complicated part if you're gonna struggle with putting the border on. After that, I believe it is just doing like double crochets all the way around. And I think she said to do, because once you do that one, I think she says to do it like for 2 more times. So you do your first row, your second row, and then 2 more times, which is what I ended up doing too. I think I still did one more, maybe extra, I can't tell. On my notes I said I did 4 rows, so it was probably 1, 2, 3, and then this one was the 4th one. And she says you can do however many you want, and I was mostly focusing my border because I got a patch, because this is going to be gifted to my sister who's having a baby boy, and I wanted it to have, because it's going to be a family thing, so I wanted to have a fun little patch to just say it was made by me, and that way it's on there. And so this is a customized patch, and the person I got this from was Berg's Next Crochet. She does a whole bunch of custom leather tags. She has all sorts of different designs, things like that. I just went with a simple square patch because I knew I was making a blanket and I just wanted to have done that way. I had her actually help me design this one, so I told her kind of what I wanted to say and what I wanted on it, and then she did her magic and did this for me. You can also get a bunch more. I just bought one, but she does have other options. I think that you can buy like 10 of them at a time. So she is a little more on the pricier side. I had to pay quite a bit to get this patch, but for something that's very significant, this was fine. I didn't mind getting, you know, all the work done to get this put in. She does have a fee when it's your first time to get it all set up. So if I were to make more of these, I wouldn't have to pay that fee anymore, and it would be all good. And I can make a bunch of these, but I don't know if I'll ever have to make a bunch of these or not, just because this was kind of a one-time thing that I thought about doing with this blanket. But I really like her style with the patches and stuff. She also has a bunch of other things as well. So I'll link her website, and she has all sorts of options. She even has, if you're into crocheting and yarn, she has little special seasonal boxes that she'll do for her website and all that. So that'll all be on her website. I'll have that link down below. But like I was saying about the patch, I based off of how I wanted it to sit on the blanket, And when I was doing it before, I was just kind of, and then you also will have, I think, 2 or 3 more rows here where you're doing kind of like this. You can kind of see it better when it's kind of farther out, where you've got, these are the double crochets, and then you have, I think they're front post and back post things that you're working here. So it kind of gives us this ridged, but you don't have to have that if you don't like that, or if you don't want that, you can just keep your simple, and then you do like a single crochet there to kind of keep the ends. But so yeah, overall this was a pretty challenging, I will say. I think the most challenging part was just getting this all stuff figured out. So on the back, it does look pretty much, you know, clean. I wouldn't say that it looks the same, but it's a, I don't even know how to describe it. It shows the colors, but you're not getting the same pattern, but it's also still very clean coming across here. So that's really nice. I like that with blankets because I don't like having to put a backing, and I don't like having to worry about which is the front, which is the back. But I mean, for the most part, you can tell, obviously this is the back, but it is very clean. And it's kind of too big to be on my table. I will show much better footages of this finished and pictures and all that, because it is just so beautiful, but you can't see it all. And I've tried setting it up on my tripod, and it's just, it'll look about the same as what I'm showing. So it's bigger than I expected, but it's not humongous. I did like that I used the yarn that it told me to. Normally I would have just tried to find a different acrylic and just make it work, but I really wanted to step out of my comfort zone a little bit and try and get the actual yarn for the project. Usually I'm never doing that, and just then the project's not turning out the way it's supposed to. So this time I did. I went out of my way and got this yarn. I had to order it from the UK. It costed a lot to get it shipped, but now I got to kind of try a new yarn and see if I liked it. I like how lightweight the blanket is. Usually when I do blankets like this, it's with acrylic and they're heavier. So I like that it's not heavy and it's lightweight. So it's very, very convenient for a baby and a mother, and when she's trying to deal with that, I think that's very nice. I was not the biggest fan of the actual yarn itself, like working with it. So here's one of the skeins here. I've got the Stylecraft special double knit. I think the one thing and maybe it's just the yarn I got. I don't know. I got my yarn from a bunch of different places, so maybe that has something to do with it, or maybe it's just the style of the yarn. But I felt like when I was working with it, it was fraying, like separating a lot, which I'm not really used to with acrylic yarn. It doesn't typically happen, but with this, it was happening kind of as I was working stuff, and so that was a little frustrating. It is a much smaller yarn than what I'm used to working with. I believe this is a 3. So I'm not saying there's anything super wrong with this yarn, but with how much I had to spend to get all of this yarn, and I had to get from various places, it was also almost impossible to get, because anytime I was trying to get it from, I can't remember the website, I think it was Woolbox, they were always out. So I had to really rush on it, and then, but I mean, overall, it's a soft yarn. I don't know if I would go out of my way to do this again. I know that Michaels, I have discovered, has lighter acrylic, not quite this light, but lighter acrylic, and a lot of different colors. They aren't the same colors, I don't think, but if I wanted to do like a rainbow like this or similar, I could. I mean, you don't have to do any colors of any kind. I just really loved her style that she had for the boy, and these colors are my favorite colors too. I love blues and greens, so this really appealed to me to do this anyway. But you could easily do an actual rainbow, which I thought about doing too, is just doing the colors of the rainbow. Or she did, you know, pinkish, springish colors, but it seemed like it would be more fitting for a girl. So you don't have to do any of these colors. But if you happen to want to do the color changes that I did in this pattern, I'll have down below my notes on the color changes, because in the pattern, she does not have those color changes. It's all for the more springish girl version. So I'll have all my notes for that, because I literally had to go through as I was working along and looking back at the picture and making sure what the actual color changes were. So I'll put those in down below. with just saying after row such and such, change this color, because that's what she does. In the pattern, I believe she talks about how much of each color you'll need, or how much actually got used. I'm going to do that with mine, especially with this border, because I know I used a completely different yarn than what she used, so I want to do the math and all that. I'll have all of that down below as well, like how much I actually used of each color here. So if you're wanting to know how much color of each skein, I can even show you guys here. Okay, you guys saw at the beginning of this video what everything kind of, I know these are all like bleh. But this is about what I have left of all the different colors here. So some of them use more and some of them use less. It depended on if they were using the mosaic or not. This was my background color, so this has gone down drastically. I'm going to measure or weigh this and see how much is left. This is a brand new skein. So all of these were all brand new skeins. And they were all at about 100 grams. So like I said, I'll have all of that down below, just because I'm going to have to sit down and weigh every single one of these to see how much I've used. But I think I have enough. I'm not sure about this. Not really sure. I'd have to see how much this is left. But I think I even have enough to make a second one of these, which I wasn't expecting, because these are literally only 100 grams. So I thought I was going to be using like all of this, because I have done that with a project before where it's like, oh, that's not very much yarn, but I actually went pretty far with these, and there's still quite a bit here. So really depending, I mean, I haven't really played around with everything, but I might be able to make a couple of these. I'm not sure. Like I said, I have to figure out how much I actually used for each color, and that will kind of tell me if I have enough to do 2 more or 1 more. I don't know. I guess I know that one probably will only do 1 more, but this was only for the baubles, you know, this was the solid, some of these were for the mosaic, all that. But in a way, if you are planning on making a bunch of blankets, that's something to consider. But overall, you know, this turned out pretty good. I am very proud of this thing. It's probably one of the fastest blankets I've ever made, so that was nice. Even though it was challenging, it was pretty quick. I think the only thing that was tricky was just these little parts right here, this one for sure. I also got, as I was working on this blanket, another idea to throw in with the blanket was these little bear beanies. So these are 2 different patterns, because this one's with blanket yarn and this one's just with the regular acrylic. But my sister is a huge fan of Winnie the Pooh, and so I thought it would be really cute to make these little, you know, they're not actually Winnie the Pooh, but all I did was just use more golden yellow yarn to make it look like Winnie the Pooh. So this one I followed a pattern by 5 Little Monsters. So hers is specifically for acrylic, and she has sizes of all kinds. So I specifically did this one as a newborn to 3 months, because I thought, you know, with the baby being in its summertime, needing something on the lighter, you know, scale, we don't need, you know, blanket yarn when it's summertime. So then this one was made by a completely different pattern, and that pattern credit goes to Crochet Dreams with a Z and not an S. And this one was like the 6 to 12 months, so by that time it'll be about winter time. So I thought it would be nice, and since it's my sister, I can also make some, you know, in between. I don't know if I don't have one specifically, but I'm sure I can find them online, is getting a bigger size for a toddler or much older. Kids grow very fast, so this is just something to kind of get her started as like a little gift, and I can always make her more if she wants more or has different sizes. So this is just a little bonus thing that I thought I'd show you guys what else I am doing to throw with the blanket. So the yarn color that I used to make this acrylic beanie is Red Heart. I have mine all curled up here because I had it stuffed in my cake, because I roll up my own cakes here. So this was in the color of Saffron. This was actually, if you guys have been following my videos and such, this was actually made with the Pooh Bear blanket that I had made for her. So this was what was left. So it's kind of fun to be able to gift this to her baby, as similar to the blanket I made her. And then this one is using Burnette blanket yarn, and I had to look at what color I had here, and I had to like pry off this sticker. So it's in the color Sun Soaked. And that's the Burnett blanket. So those I think worked out really good for that. I will have a bonus clip here of my sister opening this at her baby shower. So stick around for that. She has approved that I can put this in this video.
Oh, yeah. Smart. So this one's for me. Is this one for you?
Thank you guys.
Marianne Dustin.
I like the color scheme going on there.
Oh, this is British. The Eric Carl's very little library. It's got the very lonely firefly, very busy spider, and the very hungry caterpillar. On a nice little set. Little Pooh Bear hats. Oh, that's adorable. Rainbow blanket. Thank you, that was cool. There you go.
You're welcome. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys were inspired or were able to get some help with making your mosaic rainbow blankets or getting started on getting to make a rainbow blanket. And I hope that my tips and tricks and the things that I learned along the way were able to help you guys so that you don't have the same problems and issues that I had. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure, if you haven't done so already, to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon next to it so that you can be informed of all the videos that I have posted when they are posted and you're not missing out. Also, leave a comment. I want to know who's all watching my videos and what things you're working on. Maybe comment down below a current project that you're working on. It could be crochet, it could be knitting, it could be needlepoint, it could be cross stitching. It could be any crafts. I'd love to hear about it. I'm all about all the crafts, and I love hearing about all the things that everybody is working on. Happy crafting, and keep creating beautiful things. Until next time, everybody. Bye.